Hello and welcome back to INMR. In today's podcast, I'm going to be ranking every Premier League team's top signing from the summer. We're about halfway through the season now, and the winter window has been open for a couple of weeks, but I think now is the perfect time to look back at the previous window and have a look at how some of the top signings have ended up doing. We've got one from each team, so obviously a few big players have missed out, but we're going to be ranking their biggest one and seeing whether or not it was worth what they paid, what they were expecting. Some players obviously exceeded expectations. We've got 5 rankings, waste of money. I mean, it speaks for itself, really. Not what you paid for, not the player that you thought you were going to get, and unnecessary use of the budget. Not for me. It's not a bad signing, but it's also not a good signing. I'm not a massive fan of it, but I don't think that they're a bad player. It's not that I don't like it and that I don't think that player's going to eventually come to fruition, but at this moment in time, it's just not for me. All right, once again, speaks for itself. They've just been in the middle. Good. The team have used the budget well. It's been a player that has been necessary and they have performed well, but they haven't quite reached great signing, which to get into that is like, yeah, unbelievable deal. Bit of a bargain. Totally exceeded expectations and has been a game changer in terms of the team that they've joined and how they've transformed that style of play. So we're going to start off with Liverpool. That is Dominic Szoboszlai. The midfield was a big area for improvement for Liverpool, and they brought in some big names such as Szoboszlai and McAllister. Szoboszlai cost them 60 million and he's done well. He hasn't got many goal contributions, but he has created a lot of chances for Liverpool. And all around, I think he's been pretty solid. So for me, he's been good. Hasn't quite reached that great sign-in one, purely because he did cost 60 million. But I think good is a fair ranking for him so far this season. Sheffield United bought in Cameron Archer from Aston Villa. From their point of view, it's quite a lot of money to spend. I believe it was about 26 million he cost them from Aston Villa. Obviously, they were trying to replace Iliman Ndiaye, who they let go for I think 10 million less than that. I've enjoyed watching him play. With all the relegated sides, it's hard to judge their supposed star players because the players around them obviously aren't at the same standard, which as a collective makes the player not look as good as they are. However, Archer has provided some great goals and big moments this season, and I think that earns him a place in the all-right section. Very close to good, but a lack of goals keeps him in the middle tier for now. But he's not. I think if Sheffield United go down, he won't stay. He's a player that I can see joining a more established Premier League club because it is clear to see that he has got talent. Manchester City brought in quite a few good players, but I think the big one was Jeremy Doku. Obviously, there's an argument for Gvardiol because he cost more, but the hype around Doku, I think, exceeded that. He's a proper winger. I think the Premier League has really missed a player like him who's not afraid to charge at defenders every time and show some flair. I really like what he's doing at City because it gives Pep something different going forward that defences can't handle. Only cost them around 50 million, which nowadays is a great deal. I'm going to put him in. It's difficult because 50 million is a lot of money, but for City and for the Premier League nowadays, it's not that much. We'll put him in there for now, because he has been really good. He's only just got into great signing because 50 million is still a lot, but for City's standards and for what they've bought wingers in for in the past, Doku's nowhere near the amount of money that previous wingers have cost them. Burnley bought in Manchester City's James Trafford after an unbelievable tournament with England. He's been alright. It's obviously, like I said earlier, relegated sides, it's difficult. Let's put him in alright now. He had a really good performance against Brighton, which I think has probably been his best game of the season so far. He's shown glimpses of really good potential, and I do think he's going to go on to be a great goalkeeper. As I said, it's never easy in that Burnley side. They're just horrendous at the minute. It's a tricky one because we've seen his talent at the top level, but for his club, I mean, it's been less impressive to say the least, but I do think alright would be fair. Not for me, would be really harsh. Aston Villa signed Moussa Diaby after him being linked with a bunch of clubs that are potentially bigger than Aston Villa. He had a great start to the season for them, and of course Villa have shocked everyone at the minute with their current league position. He's been a big threat going forward, and importantly has supported Watkins in the final third. which, I mean, at Aston Villa, that's all you really need to do. Just help out in making sure Watkins can get in those key areas to get the goals. And obviously Diaby has contributed with goals and assists himself, so for me, it's been very successful. Luton brought in loads of players in their attempts to stay up. One that shocked a lot of people was Thomas Kaminski. Nobody was expecting him to come to the Prem and do so well. He only cost them 2.6 million from Blackburn, I believe, which is an absolute bargain. He's gone under the radar due to how much Luton are struggling, but they would be in a much worse position if it weren't for him. It's a great deal for me, and if Luton do go down, I can see him getting a move to a more established Premier League side as well. Next up is Arsenal, and of course the big signing was Declan Rice. He's been exactly what we expected him to be. Not a great deal because he should be playing as he is for a 100 million plus player, but it's always a good thing when rival fans aren't talking about the price tag, as it means something is going right. And I have not heard once this season rival fans slating Rice and going, oh, 100 million this, 100 million that, because he's actually lived up to it. He's been really good for Arsenal. He's been a massive upgrade in that midfield, and definitely from Arsenal's point of view has been a successful signing, so he's going to go in good. He just doesn't make it to great because of how much he cost. Everton, I mean, they've had a bit of a shambles. They brought in Beto for almost 30 million in order to avoid the relegation scrap like they did last season. He's been no help. 1 goal in the Premier League this season is really poor. He'd actually been alright at Udinese in the Serie A, but hasn't been able to hack it in the Prem. I don't think it's a total waste of money, because there are sometimes parts where I think you're doing something right, but you're just not getting the goals, and that's what he was brought in for. So, yeah, not a total waste of money, but 3 goals in 21 games this season just isn't good enough. So Beto is not for me. Going right up to the other end of the tier list, we've got James Maddison. Immediately, you have to say great signing. He was one of the most exciting signings of the summer. For me personally, he's flourished under Ange Postecoglou, and they've missed him hugely since he's been injured. Obviously, Tottenham have had an injury problem, so they've missed a lot of players, but James Maddison has been the big one who they've really missed for quite a long time now. He has been immense so far this season. Brentford bought in Nathan Collins from Wolves for about 23 million. Brentford haven't had a good first half to this season, but that shouldn't take away from Nathan Collins. I do think he's a decent defender. He's good with his feet and pretty solid defensively overall. We saw his talent at Wolves, and I think as Brentford's form picks back up, he's a player that we'll see be one of the standouts. For me, he's been alright. Next up is West Ham. They brought in Mohamed Kudus. West Ham won the race for Kudus over Brighton in the summer, and what a move it's proved to be. He's been superb on the right wing and has taken the league by storm in a matter of months. 10 goals this season across all competitions already. His power and speed is incredible. He's not quite at the top level, as personally I'd like to see him create a little bit more. He's currently in the bottom 25% of attacking midfielders and wingers in the league in terms of chances created per 90. But having said that, he's been very good in other areas, and most importantly in front of goal. So I'm going to put him in good, and once he adds a little bit more to his game in terms of chance creation, I think you'll definitely see him go up to that great signing level. Nottingham Forest, they brought in Anthony Elanga, who was written off at United, and he's totally proved them wrong. He's currently injured, but in the league already has 10 goal contributions this season, which is more than Rashford, Bruno Fernandes and Garnacho currently have at Manchester United. He's really impressed me this season, and I think it was a brilliant move for his career. Considering Forest only picked him up for 15 million, you'd have to say this is a great deal. And I think in the next couple of years, because I think after that you'll see him move away to a bigger club, but over the next couple of years you're going to see that 15 million around his name at Forest and think, wow, what a bargain that was. Manchester United, I mean, Onana's been shambolic. I don't really know what to say. Total waste of money in my opinion. That is not the Inter Milan Onana that Manchester United paid for. United paid for a brilliant shot stopper who took his side to their first Champions League final in 13 years. So of course you'd pay 40-50 million, because it looked like a bargain compared to the fees of keepers in the past like Kepa, who was about 70 million, 80 million pounds. Unfortunately, Onana's been terrible. So many errors and games lost because of those errors. So at the moment, you'd have to say it's a waste of money because they let David De Gea go on a free and is currently just sitting without a club. And instead you've spent 50 million on Onana, who is just giving away games with his mistakes at the minute. Crystal Palace bought in Matthias Franca. That move is not for me. He's hardly played and was supposed to be the guy to replace Zaha, but we just haven't even seen a glimpse of that yet. Of course, he's still very young, currently 19 years old, so he does have the potential to become a good player. But at the moment, they put quite a bit of money on him for Palace's standards, and it's just looked to be pretty unsuccessful. But, this is one where you wait a few years, and I could be totally wrong because he's so young. But at this moment in time, it's not for me. Rivals Brighton, on the other hand, have struck gold with João Pedro. He has been brilliant, 30 million well spent. The only Premier League players who currently have more goals across all competitions than him are Haaland and Salah. A few more things I would like to see with him to go into the top tier. I do think at the minute he's just that good. He's brilliant with his feet and has unreal composure, but I would like to see a few more goals from open play. And I think sometimes he tries to do too much, but of course he's still a young player, so this is to be expected. Fulham brought in Calvin Bassey. He's been solid for them. I think even times when the team have been poor, I've been pretty impressed with a few of his performances. However, saying that, there are times where I think he can be a liability. Needless bookings, and of course that's led to suspensions. There's one he's currently on at the minute. He had a red card right at the start of the season, which, as a defender who you can see is pretty good, you just don't need that. His season has been very similar to Fulham's as a club, I think. Pretty hit and miss. So for that reason, I'm just going to put him in the middle. Chelsea, Caicedo's got to join Onana. I mean, it's a huge letdown. Goal contributions were never part of his game at Brighton, so that's not something we're looking at. There's no issue in terms of his creative output, or he's not scoring goals, he's not, that was never a thing at Brighton. That wasn't what they paid for. He's not been breaking up play and progressing up the pitch like he used to. And for that amount of money, it's been an awful deal for Chelsea. Similar to Onana, that is not the Caicedo they bought. So in my opinion, that has been a huge waste of money. Bournemouth bought in Alex Scott. He's been alright. He's a good player. We just haven't seen enough of him. Only 4 Premier League starts this year, but in those he has managed to get 2 goal contributions. His potential is clear to see though, and it's no surprise that he was so sought after in the summer transfer window. Soon enough he'll get his chance and regular game time and will be dominating the midfield, I'm sure. At the moment though, I just haven't seen enough of him on the pitch. A club like Bournemouth spending that much money, you would have expected Scott to have featured a lot more than he has. Newcastle spent a lot of money on Sandro Tonali. He was doing really well before the ban. I think he adapted to the Premier League well, which is always a massive question when top talents from Europe join the league. He's still got more to prove as he hadn't played much of the season, but his quality was clear to see. If it weren't for the ban, you'd definitely be putting him in good, but just because we didn't get to see a lot of him before he was suspended from playing football for a while, you have to just say he's been alright. But I think once that ban has been lifted and he begins playing again, he would easily get bumped back up to good because he was doing very well. Final player is Wolves Bellegarde. He's been alright. Anyone that's watched Wolves this season will know that Bellegarde is a difficult player to deal with. A deadline day signing that's proved to be a good move on O'Neill's side. He's a big player for them this season, but I do think he goes slightly under the radar due to players like Hee-Chan Hwang and Matheus Cunha getting the goals and assists. He can do it both going forward and defensively, but he's only going in alright as I think there is more to see from him, having seen what he did at Strasbourg last season in Ligue 1 and the opening games of this season. I do think there's still a little something that we haven't quite seen from him yet. So that is my tier list, pretty well balanced. Obviously there weren't going to be many that were a waste of money. It's very harsh to put players in there, but I do think that those 2 in particular are right. Obviously people are going to disagree, but for me, I think that is pretty accurate. That is where I'm going to end today's podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll be back soon with another one.